Hi, my name is Richard Stevens. I am the president of ChannelAssist. I've been with ChannelAssist for about 3.5 years now. And this is our weekly webinar segment. And I didn't realize how lucky we were until I started doing my research, but we're lucky to have Carlo Brayda with us today. Carlo is the founder, president, and CEO of Gorilla. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Gorilla does. But in doing my homework on Carlo, after I asked him, I realized, wow, Carlo's like, he's a big deal. For me, we've been partnering with Carlo and working on a number of opportunities in the channel space. But to give you an idea of Carlo's background, he's the founder and chairman, as I mentioned, founder, CEO, and president of Gorilla. He's also the founder, executive chairman of Carlo Brayda Partnership Excellence, which is a global think tank. He has been a member of the World Economic Forum. He is an expert contributor to the G20, to the global risks in 2012. He focuses on partnership excellence and has, including a think tank, which is focused on cybersecurity, cloud data center, artificial intelligence, and robotics. He's also a member of the Forbes Technology Council and contributes thought leadership on articles in channel strategy. I really feel inadequate. Thank you very much, Carlo. I appreciate that. Gorilla is with offices in the US, Europe, Africa, Asia Pacific, focuses on helping vendors measure, grow, and enable and manage their sales channels. And so Carlo, we thought, would be an excellent addition to our webinar series to talk about really the challenges that companies, organizations face in starting their channel and managing their channel. And there's no one that's got a perfect approach, but Carlo, the channel sure can be a complicated environment.
For sure. And thank you so much for having me here. It's a real privilege for me to be, talking on this webinar together with you. And thank you for the very kind introduction. That's really very, very kind for you to introduce me in that way. So the channel is it's a jungle out there, as we say, Gorilla. And it really is quite something, and I love the theme of today's discussion, and I'll let you outline it, but I think it's going to be an interesting discussion.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about kind of channels, challenges in operating the sales channel, and really there's countless ways to manage them, but the fact is that there are some tried and true approaches to managing the channel. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is I've read a number of articles that you've written. And I think the first thing I want to touch on is the role of your partner and visualizing success. You talk about, in one of your articles, about how you should visualize success. So what do you mean by that? When someone's, let's start out with starting the channel and growing your channel. How do you think that someone should be focused on visualizing success? What does that mean to you?
I think visualization is really kind of important. It's kind of sets out, I think it's part of the entrepreneurial process. You've got to really come up with the idea and imagine that success of where you want to be, and where you want to be with your channel, where you want to be with each of the discrete channel relationships that you have. And I think the channel partner, on the other hand, also needs to visualize that success. And I think that kicking off a successful partnership is really coming to the table and dreaming together. And I think that vendors today need to do more of that. I think it was something that was done at the very beginning and the early stages of our industry, when channel was not a sophisticated business, and it was really a case of coming together and having those fresh initial conversations, those earnest conversations. I think we got to a stage afterwards in the industry where everything became so programmatic that people kind of lost a little bit of the magic of partnering, right? I think when to kick off a successful partner relationship, I really think it's so important to invite your partner at a table and kind of really, see where it needs to go. Of course, if you're an important brand and you have hundreds or thousands of partners, it's difficult to give them that same kind of love and attention. But I think it's a vendor's job to make sure that they have a sufficient coverage strategy to be able to give at least a level of that type of attention to each of the partner relationships. And
Right.
so when I talk about dreaming the success of the future, I really think about the images that brings to you, but also then backed up by a strategy and a plan to get you and the relationship from A to B.
In my past, I've been twice in my career, I've had to start a channel from scratch. And the first time I had to do it was way back in the 80s, and I was wet behind the ears. I just got out of school. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was working with a bunch of seasoned people. But to be honest with you, when I look back, they really didn't have a strategy either. Basically, their strategy was, if someone wants to sell our product, then let's be happy and go with it. Looking back now, we wasted so many resources on people that weren't effective in becoming an effective partner. So what does the right partner look for? How does a company do that? The number of people that call us because of our name say, look, can you help me grow my channel? They don't realize we focus on the incentive side. What they're looking for are the right partners. So what kind of recommendations what should someone be looking for when we talk about the right partner?
I love that question. It's such an interesting question, and there's so much in it, really. I think thinking about the right partners, it's about setting out that strategy to start with. It's about looking at first of all, how many partners, of what kind and where, right? I think that often we think of partners only as the transactional partners that will just resell your product.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there's also other kinds of partners that need to be brought into the equations. The partners that are influencers, the partners that specify the product and maybe don't transact it, and maybe there are the partners that fulfill and implement the product that are maybe different from the partners that actually transact it. So maybe you need a composition of these various ingredients. So as you work out your channel strategy, you need to first of all think about you got to think about how the customer wants to buy your product.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think the most important thing, is to look at it from the end customer's eyes rather than from your own eyes as a vendor, as a manufacturer, for instance. No, we should turn it around and say, and really understand how does a customer want to interact with your organization? Do they want to buy the product on the web and then have it implemented by a professional servicing and installation team? Or do they want to have source it all from their trusted advisor and go from soup to nuts with a trusted advisor? Or is a trusted advisor only there to give advice, and then there's a different organization that fulfills? So these are all the considerations that are the preliminaries, if you like, the preamble to thinking about what is the perfect partner. And then afterwards, and to answer your question more directly, what we do at Gorilla, and what we believe in, what I believe in, is the idea of doing things, data-driven. So scorecarding partners, I think, is key. So what we like to do as a program is to define the ideal partner profile for your company, and like I said, you may have an influencer partner profile, a specific one. You may have a different partner profile for the transactional partners. You may have a partner profile of the ideal partner profile for your bigger complex products, and a different partner profile for your more transactional velocity goods. But it's important to define what your ideal partner profile is based on empirical data. And then once you've done that, you scorecard potential partners against that ideal profile. And then you're able to stack rank them numerically and have a list of, say, top 250 in order of priority. And that way you know which ones to go for, is kind of how we do it.
You're the first person I've ever heard say, how does the customer want to buy? And I think everybody has to. I've been selling for 35 some odd years, and the one characteristic I believe in selling that you have to have in order to be a good salesperson is that of empathy. If you cannot align with what your prospect, your client, their feelings and needs are, then you're never going to be successful as a salesperson. But basically what you just said was the exact same thing for the channel, is if you cannot put yourself in the shoes of your customer and understand how they want to make their purchase, who do they talk to? How do they buy online? Do they do all of their homework up front? Are they looking for a consultant? Are they looking for someone to do everything from soup to nuts? Then if you don't understand that, then how can you choose the right partners? Because let's face it, just someone knocking on your door saying, hey, I want to sell your product, doesn't make them qualified to sell your product. I mean, it's nice that someone knocks on your door that says they want to sell your product, but really, how productive are you really going to be when you just accept everybody that says they want to sell your product? How do you think that aligns with the struggle that I find that lots of organizations have is the difference between those that have a well-known brand and those that have no brand whatsoever, or a very, very small brand. How they grow their channel is very, very different. You know, if you're lucky enough to have a well-known brand like an AT&T or an HP or an Amazon or a Google, life's a lot easier when it comes to growing your channel. Yeah. But if you're ABC company, it's way different. Most of the people that are on this call, now there's a number of people from large brands, and not to put them aside, but the fact is that their channel growth strategies are going to be different than those that don't have that brand. So speak to the people that don't have the brand, and where they really have to work to find companies that want to resell their product. What are the kind of struggles that they deal with, and what are kind of recommendations you can make for them to kind of reach out and establish themselves in a channel environment?
Yeah, the folks that don't have much of a brand are the ones that are going to have to work a lot harder. You know, that's kind of the plain fact. I think at the end of the day, in my situation, I've been a channel partner as well in my earlier days in the industry. And as a channel partner, of course you want to gravitate towards the well-known names because it helps you sort of look better, right? Sure. And also it gives you the opportunity of you know, maybe working with you know, in a more mature industry and have larger deal opportunities, etc. All these things kind of go with a bigger brand. When you have a smaller brand, you got to work harder. So what you need to do, I think, is that you need to, first of all, make yourself so incredibly relevant to the channel partner. I think the important thing is you need to, if you have a product that is disruptive, then it's okay. You don't need a brand. And these days, there are a lot of companies that have a disruptive product, and it's a unicorn or even a startup out of Silicon Valley or elsewhere, and maybe it's a cybersecurity, and it's got a product, a solution that has something really special and unique, or an artificial intelligence product. Well, these folks, you know, there's nobody really, you know, big. I mean, it's a disruptive industry. It keeps on being disrupted. So nobody really knows who the big guys are. It keeps on changing, you know, all the time, every year. So somebody with no brand working in a disruptive environment like that, they're okay. They can actually make a case for themselves.
Absolutely.
The other thing that I think you need to do is, if you don't have a brand, is to make yourself so incredibly relevant to the channel partner and go over, above, and beyond what a big brand would do for them. So in our world, what that means is giving your partner superb commercial support, over and above what a bigger brand would do. I think that's certainly one area of that I would emphasize.
Yeah, the problem that many companies have, many vendors have when establishing themselves in the channel, is that they all think they have a great product. And in the technology space, a great product today is an afterthought tomorrow, right? The fact is that it's so dynamic and it's changing so much. What vendors need to consider is this, and that is that if they're going to build a partner network, they need to think about the fact that if they're looking for a partner to sell their product, what's that partner going to displace to sell their product? And what's the value proposition they're going to offer that partner over and above what the displaced product's going to provide? So for example, if we take something, you know, remarkably simple, let's take the cell phone, for example. If I want someone to sell my cell phone, Well, the partner's not all of a sudden going to start selling more cell phones. What they're going to do is they're going to say, well, we need to stop selling that cell phone over there in order to sell this cell phone. So really they're exchanging revenue for revenue. What is it that you're going to do when you sell this cell phone to make it more worth that partner's while? And so when we talked about empathy for the consumer, you also have to think about empathy for the partner. What's in it for the partner to make it worth their while to sell your product, right? Those are things you have to think about, because the partner wants to make more revenue. They don't just want to move products around, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I agree. I think these days, more and more businesses are going down the path of being quote unquote conscious businesses. So conscious business is a business in which you take care of all your stakeholders. So, in a conscious business, you see your employees as stakeholders, your customers as stakeholders, your suppliers as stakeholders. And what you try to do is that you're really much more driven by the concept of empathy and seeing things from everybody else's perspective. And so that applies, I think, super well in channel, because I think, again, the formula to success there is, the true formula to success is to have the partners back as a vendor. If you've got their back and you're supporting them consistently and you're making sure that they are able to profit and prosper out of your solution, then they will give you that same trust and empathy back, and they will support you over other vendors, and they will give you the first the core of their commitment. We spend at least 8 hours a day working these days, right? And so it's the majority of our life, as we always know, and you have to do that with the people that you care about, and that involves also the right vendors and the right partner relationships. So yeah, empathy is key. I think what's really important to think about also is the fact that for a partner, we sometimes take this whole idea of partner recruitment so nonchalantly, and we say, oh, I want to recruit partners, I want to have 100 partners or 1,000 partners. But as you pointed out, for a partner, it's a job to take on a new vendor line. First of all, you have to justify it to them and on a business case basis. And you have to show them on a business plan in a simple and expedited way how they can make money by working with you, and how you're going to make it easier for them to make money and to be supported. But also, there's a dollar cost to the reseller business to take you on as a vendor. Sometimes it's very high. In fact, most of the time it's very high, even though you may not be charging a fee, or maybe sometimes you don't even charge a training fee. But the human cost to the reseller of getting involved with you, of maybe dedicating 2 or 3 salespeople, or maybe 1 or 2 sales engineers, or maybe some admin time behind that, plus a little portion of the executive management time, you're talking about at least $1 million, if not more. So when you think about it in those terms, if you think about wanting to recruit 100 partners, you're talking about consuming $100 million of their wealth. What are you going to do for them? How are you going to make it easy for them to be successful quickly?
That's an excellent point. I've always thought that when a consumer, for the most part, when a consumer buys a product, whether it's B2C or B2B, they're making an investment in you, but their business isn't going to live or die based on your product. A partner, however, when they make a commitment to your product, their business can live and die based on your product. The opportunity cost that they're putting into you, that they're not putting into something else, can be very, very significant. And if it doesn't have a payoff, that will have a dramatic effect on their business. So the idea of understanding the relationship, the partner relationship, is equally or maybe even more critical than understanding the consumer or customer relationship, because you need to in order to get to those customers, you need that dedicated partner relationship, establish yourself and grow and develop that growth over time. So one of the big issues that's been around for a long time is between large channels, large brands and small brands, is that of kind of the channel conflict, and dealing with channel conflict in the sense that any channel conflict could take a number of different forms. It could be channel conflict between partners. So, if you're fortunate and you have, 1,000 partners in North America that are competing with each other, that's one form of channel conflict. And then you've got channel conflict between a direct sales force and the channel itself. And the consumer's everlasting love of buying direct and buying directly from the vendor, the conflict that charges. What are your recommendations on both, for small companies and large companies to address that kind of activity?
Yeah, channel conflict is a dangerous and ugly thing because it can ruin your reputation as a vendor. It's about establishing trust. So you have to establish trust with your partners, whether it's your wife or your reseller, right? You have to have that level of trust, and that's really fundamental. And you can't play around with that. That's fundamental to the relationship. And with partners, it's very much that. The thing that partners hate the most is to be in a situation whereby they're putting their livelihoods at risk to support your business, and then something happens, and there can be a loss of trust there. Either the vendor takes on a direct relationship with the client that you are working, or another reseller comes and fights for that business and undercuts your prices. These things happen, and they can leave a very bad taste in the mouth. So my philosophy is avoid channel conflict at all costs. How can you avoid it? There are a number of ways of avoiding it. First of all, as you point out, there are two kinds of channel conflict. There's one is channel partners fighting against each other and for the same piece of business. And one is even worse, is when the direct team at the vendor side snatches the business. So to avoid the direct situation, if you're working with a vendor that also sells direct, I think that the vendor should actually compensate their salespeople to support the channel and sell through the channel. So a lot of the very enlightened vendors, what they do is that they compensate their direct salespeople on closing a piece of business direct, but they actually will give them a kicker if they close it through a channel partner. That is a formula for success, because that means that the direct sales team will involve partners as much as possible and try to close deals with the partners. And that's actually, it's a synergy thing. It's a 1 + 1 = 3. Because you empower the partner, you build that trust, you build that relationship. So that's an excellent strategy. The other strategy that I would mention is insofar as avoiding channel partners fighting each other for the same piece of business. What we do is that we like to split out the market in what we call a battlefield. Typically in B2B, we specialize on enterprise and mid-market, so we call it the enterprise and mid-market battlefield. And the battlefield is essentially a view of the market and every little industry and sub-industry vertical. And within each of these industry verticals, we look at horizontally how the market goes into these verticals. So let's say that one vertical is retail, another one is pharmaceutical, another one is manufacturing. Then we look at the companies that are enterprise level, lower enterprise, upper mid-market, lower mid-market, upper end SMB, lower end SMB. In each of these become like little squares. So each of these represents an industry market niche, right? Big companies, big pharmas, medium pharmas, small pharmas, essentially. Big manufacturing, small manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Within that, what we try to do is that we try to create an alignment between the right partner and the right market, so that we play each partner to their strengths. And then we try to avoid interacting, crossing what we call arcs of fire. So each partner has an alignment to a different industry niche, and we try to do that as much as possible. And it does really work, because you'll always get a little bit of a situation every now and again, but in principle, you'll have a very clean go-to-market, and you won't have partners fighting each other, because each one will be specialized in their own little area. That really works.
So one of the challenges, and now here's a new phrase I'd never heard of before. I know what it means, but the Pareto Principle, right? The whole 80-20 rule. A lot of what I've read have said it could be as bad as 95-5. 95% of your channel is not going to perform or meet your expectations. So if you take that approach to that channel conflict that you spoke of, But you've also at the same time got a significant number of the channel partners that you have not meeting your expectations, and in more cases than not, I'm sure those partners would admit not meeting their own expectations. How do you combine that? Because I've never seen anybody's sales channel that doesn't suffer from the Pareto principle.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, almost always it's just one of those things that really works. And you're right. Sometimes it's not the 80-20 rule. It's a 99-1 rule. You know, I've seen that kind of thing happen too. So I think what's really interesting when I look at the way that companies are distributed, channel partners are distributed in a vendor channel ecosystem, I see that it's, you know, you would think that the ones that are really selling are the big companies. It's not always so.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the ones that transact a lot of revenue are like the companies that the resellers that you never heard of, right? And sometimes what you have is you've got the real big ones that are just down there at the bottom of your pyramid, of your Pareto pyramid. And you think, how's it possible that these huge behemoths of reseller organizations that they're not doing anything for my brand? Why is that so? You know, and actually, so often they're just embedded down there. The vendor doesn't even realize that they have a very important partner because they're just down there amongst the masses of resellers don't produce, right? So again, what I think is really important there is to, first of all, have an analytical view to your partners, and to have, you know, really, we believe in profiling partners in real time. So understand this, where they're at, and profile them not only in terms of how much revenue they do for you, but also in terms of how much revenue they could do for you, right? That's another, I think that's perhaps a more important perspective, because once you see the companies that have the potential, then you know where to go and kind of invest your time. So what we do, where possible, is that we try to tag each a reseller type in your channel ecosystem with a tag that is descriptive as to their behavior in your partner ecosystem. So you could be, for example, like a one-time wonder is a partner that performs every now and again, intermittently, maybe once a year or something like that. Then you have other partners that are the real rising stars because they're committed. You see that they have frequency, reach, and yield, and it's all good. Those are great, right? So you want to invest more time supporting them, being relevant to them, showing them that you really care. And then there's the ones that have the potential, but they don't deliver. Maybe because, as you say, if they're not selling your phone, they're selling somebody else's phone, right? Mm-hmm. So they're selling the competition stuff. But wouldn't you love it if they sold your stuff? Yes. So how are you going to get into a cozy relationship with them? That requires account development. In the same way that we do customer account development, sometimes we have to court the partners in the same way. And we have to do a partner account development to really understand how to make yourself and your brand relevant to that partner. And furthermore, understanding that the partner is not one person in the company, but it's a lot of different people. So your relationship has got to be, if you can, at C-level, but also at mid-management level, and ultimately, most importantly, at the rep level.
Well, we started talking about how the difference from having a well-known brand and not having a well-known brand. And one of your recommendations was really to have a stronger commercial relationship as a brand that's not well-known with the partner, because the big brands can't do that. And one of the challenges that big brands suffer from is the ever existent pressure on human resources. The fact is that, and we see this on a regular basis, and that is that, you know, people have a channel, and, you know, they have developed hundreds, thousands of potential partners, and the perception in some cases, rightly or wrongly, is that the soft spot, the people that they can let go of or that they can reduce numbers of, are the account managers that deal with these channels. Then you could look at any large vendor and see that the ratio doesn't make sense. The fact is that you could take a vendor that has 10,000 partners, and if each partner has 10 reps, that's That's a lot of reps that you have to deal with. It's 100,000 reps. Well, they have 80 account managers. Well, how does that ratio doesn't make sense?
Yeah.
So that most important person that you're talking to, that's the opportunity for the small companies to go after because they can pay more attention to them. But how do the large companies deal with that? Because one of the sayings that I tend to use is, why should someone sell your product? Like, don't you have to continually convince them and ensure that they're in alignment to make sure that they sell your product? Because otherwise, you're going to lose them, and that's how you lose the big partners.
Yeah, you're spot on. Spot on. I completely agree with you. You have to carry on selling yourselves all the time. You have to carry on being relevant to them. And the way to do that is to actually be active partners. So that's the point. The point is, when you have a reseller channel, you just don't, you don't have them just as numbers in your channel program and give them a login to your partner portal and hope that it all works out. Because, they'll be partners for a little bit and then they'll drift away. And it's just not the way to do it. The way to do it is to be real partners. So one way that we do that for our clients is that one of the biggest things these days is partner marketing. That's a big way to show yourself relevant, to make yourself relevant to your partners. Depending on what reseller tier you're working on, a lot of the smaller channel partners don't have a big marketing operation. Sometimes they don't have a marketing operation at all. Right. And so for them, it's a gap. And as you say, people are expensive. And so for a reseller to afford to have a marketing department, it can be very expensive. So we have found that as a vendor, if you actually provide them with marketing support and resources, that's a big thing. That can go a long way. And that puts you in the privileged position of showing that you are there in your relationship with them. So you can afford as a vendor not to have that many W-2s against your channel, provided that you are able to show them relevance and support anyway. So so what we find is for example, by putting together a global partner marketing concierge type program, that makes you very relevant for your partners, and it helps you to it helps them to build out marketing strategies that they've never really thought about, right? And they're doing that thanks to the brand, thanks to you as a vendor. So they're suddenly creating marketing plans. They're suddenly also making the connection of, yeah, wouldn't it be nice to achieve this sales quota for this vendor? Wouldn't it be nice to do $1 million of sales for this vendor? But in order to do the $1 million of sales, it doesn't. The deals don't walk in by themselves. Not always, anyway. Usually not. So therefore, you need to create a marketing pipeline of maybe at least $5 million if you want to close $1 million. So you need to create a marketing plan that allows for at least $5 million worth of pipeline, and you got to monitor that. You got to create the lead waterfall that ensures that you get leads coming in at a sufficient level to be able to convert sufficient revenue. So this is, I think, is how a lot of the bigger players do it. We work with some very large companies and some small companies too. But it really makes sense to support your partners from a commercial sense, from a marketing perspective like that.
One of the other things I think that partners can do is, I have two sons, both in their 20s. One works for a very large reseller, and one works for a very, very small reseller. And it's like looking at two different worlds. The one that works for a large reseller, he ended up spending, I want to say, 6 weeks in an intensive training. And he's been there for 1.5 years, and he's still in that training group. So there are still things he has to learn, obviously. 1.5 years selling is not, you're not going to learn everything. Yet the other son was thrust into more of a cold calling mode, whereby he just cold calls on a regular basis. Now, they both cold call, but one was fully trained and one was learn as you go. I would recommend to many vendors to start looking at providing sales training, not product training, but sales training to a lot of these mid and small size companies. Look, ChannelAssist is not the biggest of companies, and training is something that we spend money on very judiciously. We need a very strong business case to support spending a lot of money on training. There has to be value and translatable value that has an impact very soon. It's the same for sales training. Salespeople are often left out when it comes to that level of training because people figure, well, you know what, if they don't figure it out, I can let them go. But nowadays, finding good salespeople is very difficult. And I would recommend to many companies that if you provide sales training around value proposition and objection handling and how to identify opportunities, that would go a long way to developing not only reseller loyalty, but loyalty from the sales rep. And at the end of the day, the sales reps own the customer relationship. So there's, the big companies that are out there, the Soft Choices and the CDWs, they all train their reps. But those small, mid-sized companies, I'm sure they would welcome resources and help in doing that. And I'm sure there's a lot of ways that the larger companies can help facilitate that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love the sound of what you're saying. I think it goes a long way. And one of the things I've heard of more these days is the idea of I don't know how it's actually called. Probably I think it's called fractional training. So instead of putting your sales team through like a big training course that could consume weeks of their time or days of their time all at once, you actually you design a training program that gives them little nuggets of wisdom, of techniques, and you deliver that in a gamified version, in a gamified fashion on a ad hoc basis, and it's just a different way of learning, and I think that's also a very nice way of doing it. Is to really try to be very innovative in putting together a program for your salespeople.
Well, it's also supportive with the idea of the whole channel conflict thing. If your direct sales force works with these salespeople, keep in mind, channel salespeople have a wide variety of products they can sell. They don't just sell your product. So the more your direct sales force engages with them, the more those people are going to learn through osmosis. I know it's very difficult nowadays that we're all looking at each other through a monitor, but the fact is that someone that talks about your product once a month is not going to learn a whole lot about how to do it.
Right.
So you need to find a way to keep in front of them, keep them engaged. How do you do that? Well, use your direct sales force to support it and come up with other systems and tools that allow you to stay in front of them. But now I'll go back to mindshare. So, I mean, that's certainly one way to get mindshare with a sales rep. But the fact is that with my son that works at the large company, more often than not, his opportunities come when someone knocks on his door. So he calls people and hopes that, hits at the right time. But then one of the customers or prospects he may have called may call him back and said, hey, I need this many network devices. And they'll tell them what brand they're looking for. Well, how do you start, how do you, if you're a small company or you're not that brand, how do you get that person, that sales rep to position your product rather than the product the customers walked in the door mentioning? How do you get the mind share that makes them think, well, no, you know what, you might be better off with this product rather than the product you think you need? Or if they don't show up with a name at all, how do you get them to talk about your product rather than someone else's product? Any suggestions on how to kind of keep that mind share of those sales reps? And it's not just obviously sales reps, but sales management and the executive level, because you only meet with them so often, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. One of the things that we're thinking about these days is to turn that on its head and actually getting the right people to walk in, or even through a proactive marketing approach, to actually get your salespeople to connect with people that are like-minded, like them, in the right industry, in the right situation. So what I mean by that is one of the things that we do is that we do in the same way that we stack rank resellers in order to help the vendor understand which reseller to work with, we also help the reseller stack rank their customers or their prospects, right?
Right.
So first of all, when a vendor walks in and they have an opportunity for their install base, then what we can do is that we can do an analysis on their customer base and actually do a customer's propensity to buy analysis and highlight and stack rank from their existing customers which ones are the ones that are most likely to buy to cross-sell or upsell into the new vendor solution. And that might be a really quick way to monetize the relationship makes the vendor happy, makes the customer happy, and makes the rep happy because, of course, they're getting more commission money. The other way is well, it's not the other way. It's in addition, what we are looking to do more of these days is to apply artificial intelligence and data modeling to end user data, to B2B and business to business end user data. This is, I think, really, really interesting and really important. So we've been conducting some tests recently. We're still running some tests right now. We're seeing that there are some really good ways of modeling data, and that you can actually get your sales reps. You can match your sales reps in terms of personality types with the personality types of potential customers. And you can do that by applying AI on their LinkedIn profile and essentially matching like for like, so that then you divvy up your target database and you give it to the right reseller rep that has the right that talks the same kind of language and has the same kind of mentality as the end user customer. So they hit it off in the relationship in a very good way. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is, of course, matching the company, the target company, with your product. So again, we can stack rank it. And so we have some analytical AI tools that are able to do the data modeling and that can actually stack rank companies and contacts based on their propensity to gel with any specific vendor product.
So what about the idea of, if you know that a rep has sold a certain networking solution to a certain industry in the past, and now someone from a competitor or of that client is now looking for a networking solution, and you see that Joe Smith over here has had success selling that very networking solution and understands their business. If you had that kind of access to that kind of information, that would allow you to pass that lead directly to someone who's had that level of success, thereby increasing your success. Because not only have, from a personality characteristics, but the fact that you've seen someone be successful selling that product to that kind of industry before. And they can potentially duplicate that process. That would add a lot of value. I know when I've worked selling directly, often, direct sales forces get aligned with industries because that knowledge of that industry helps them sell and empathize with the industry they're selling to. And if you as a vendor could use the channel and the channel reps in that same methodology, that would also increase your chance of success, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. This is, I think, is one of those key things that are best practice in channel management is alignment, let's say deal alignments, and I would say even further lead triaging and alignment. So as a vendor, often you will actually originate leads and opportunities to pass through the channel. And I've seen over the years, that happen in a very bad way and in a very good way. In a very bad way is that you send a lead out to your partners, but you don't really think about it. Maybe you do it on the basis of region. And you say, okay, well, this lead is from California, that reseller is from California, let's give that lead to that reseller. And guess what? Maybe it doesn't work like that, because the reseller in California is maybe a value, highly consultative type of reseller, and this lead is a very transactional lead, so it has no value to that reseller. And sometimes you may have it the other way around, where you have a very consultative need. Somebody needs to design a new architecture for a new data center, and you give it to somebody that sells boxes, and it's just wrong, right? So there's so many ways it can go wrong, right? So for me, this alignment is fundamental in two ways. One is aligning the right opportunity with the right company for the right reason, because you profile them and you know this deal opportunity fits that company business model. And then this is the next step of the science, is making sure that that deal goes to the right rep inside of that reseller, because not all reps are the same. As you say quite rightly, there are the ones that are focused on one thing and the ones that are focused on the other. So the knowledge I think that the vendor needs to have is at the rep level. And that's something that is rare these days. It's still rare. I think it's another bastion of best practice that has to be really defined, designed, and implemented, because I don't see much of that yet, but I think it's really important. So,
well, and that's one of the areas we're focusing on is in all industries is identifying the reps that are successful and the reps that have that repeated success, and communicating that up to the vendors so that they understand that while this vendor may not be providing the revenue you want, that rep at that vendor is doing an exceptional job. We talked a little bit about the Pareto Principle, where there's that whole 80-20 rule. There's the 80-20 rule for partners, and there's the 80-20 rule for reps, right? A rep that is a high performer may not be at a partner that's a high performer. The two are mutually exclusive. And understanding those reps and the alignment with those reps go a long way. And I love the idea of the AI to really identify who the strong reps are, and then getting more out of them and giving them more so that they can obviously benefit from that as well. Listen, I could talk about this all day, and I really appreciate your time. We've got about 14 minutes left, and so what I'd like to do, Carlo, is open it up to questions from our audience. So, Brooke, I'm going to pass it over to you, and if you have any questions at all, let us know.
Sure, we do, and to anyone else who'd like to add some questions, just add it to the Q&A button below, and we will get to them. So the first question, Carlo, is in terms of partner performance, it's a two-parter. What is the most important metric to measure partner performance, and what tools would you recommend?
Okay. Well, measuring partner performance, I think what's typically people will measure partner performance just on revenue. And I think it's even then it's not often monitored. I would add, that's an absolute metric, of course, revenue. The other thing that I think is really key that is generally overlooked is the pipeline to quota ratio on partner relationships. I think that's something that's, when I've seen that properly operated, it changes everything, right? Because it changes your mindsets and the way that you go about managing your partners. So this pipeline to quota ratio, you want to have, realistically, a 3x to 5x ratio. I think it's ideally it'd be more than 5x, but that's very ambitious, and not many vendors have the stature and the money to be able to ensure that you have a bigger than 5x ratio. But the minimum really is 3.5x. So 3.5x is a minimum. So if your partner has 100,000 quota, you want to make sure that they've got a minimum of $350,000 of marketing pipeline, and so that's what we tend to do, is that we like to heat map it so that when a partner is in the zone, you see it shows as green. When the partner is out of the zone because their pipeline is too small, it's colored red, and if it's in the middle, it's yellow. That way you see at a glance how your partners are doing and where they need more effort. And that way you can actually gear and ask your channel account managers to focus on the relationships that really need to be supported. That way you're not surprised at the end of the quarter when your channel doesn't meet the target, because you can see it, you've got that control. So you can pick it up early on, and at the beginning of the quarter, you can say, look, it looks like your pipeline is going to be really bad this quarter. Let's start to build out some activities together. And that's kind of, if there's one metric, one KPI that I would choose that makes me passionate, is that one. Then of course there's many other things. I could list a trillion. I don't know if we got time for that, but that's if there's one I want to call out, is that ratio.
Great, thank you. Next question. What partner incentives keep resellers engaged and motivated?
Okay, that's a really good question too. I find that it depends what you're selling. But I think any kind of engagement is good engagement. I think generally there are different tools that provide different kinds of support for the partners. There's the loyalty oriented tools with the points that you can redeem against the catalog. There are there's a company stuff that you can give away, like t-shirts and all that. you know what? Surprisingly, even those things work. Even those things work. I think when you put together an incentive scheme that is meaningful to the partner and the company, I think, yeah, I'm rambling, but the one thing I'd like to say is that your incentive has got to be at two levels. It's got to be for the rep and for the company, and it would be really nice if there was alignment there between the partner the reseller itself, and the reseller. Financial incentives are really powerful, and making sure that you drive the program with the right financial incentive for the reseller partner, and make sure that that reseller provides accordingly for the reps is really, really important. And then I would say the other thing is that we talked about profiling partners and profiling reps. So knowing what makes your reps tick goes a long way. And these days reps are not a mystery anymore. They all have a LinkedIn profile, right? So it's quite easy for a vendor to see what kind of things they're into, and actually align their incentives, their non-monetary incentives to their liking. If there are people that like traveling, you go along the travel theme. If there are folks that like whatever they like, you kind of tailor your incentives, your non-monetary incentives, to suit their personality. I find that, for example, that goes a really long way. We've seen incentives, for example, there's some people that really love food and wine, and you provide incentives that really along those lines. I mean, we've done incentives in the past where we sent out frying pans to people that really enjoyed cooking. And that was one of the most successful things we had ever done. Now, you'd think it's crazy, right? But you know what? A frying pan, you keep it forever. If it's a good quality frying pan, it's going to stay in your kitchen forever. And every time you're frying an egg, you'll be thinking about your vendor. So, it's good to be creative like that sometimes.
If I could add something, Carlo, it's funny. 9 out of 10 people say they want money.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, they all wish 90% of that 9 out of 10 wish they didn't take money.
Yeah.
They would much rather have an experience or something tangible that connects them. Money is fleeting. Money obviously is important, but the fact is that an exclusive trip or a memory is something that people really attach themselves to. I know personally, I've gone on a number of, President's Club kind of trips, and you remember them for a lifetime. Where'd you spend that commission check you got 5 years ago? Like you just don't remember, right? And so understanding what the channel reps are looking for is really important, but you can't forget the co-op or MDF funds that are so important to the partner, because you need to keep both happy, right? You just can't keep one happy. You need the reps to be happy and engaged, and you need the partners to not resent that the reps are getting paid by a vendor outside of themselves. The vendors want to, the partners want to feel that they're a part of it as well. And so it has to go hand in glove. You can't just do one without the other.
You're so right. The experience side, I just want to say, you're so right. It's the most important thing, and it's memories. Memories are worth more than money. Once we did an event for reps a long time ago, and we organized it. I was living in Europe at the time, and we organized flights out to a rugby game to see Italy against Scotland at the Olympic Stadium in Rome. And that was an event that everybody still remembers that event. It was so much fun. So yeah, experiences are, that's a big thing. Experiences and frying pans.
So the next question is, you talked about the importance of data analysis, but the question is there a balance between data analysis and the experience in terms of guiding your methodology, especially if you can't afford to invest in analytics straight away? Is there a balance?
Yeah, there is a balance, because what comes first, I think, is building the relationship with the channel. So it's having the bandwidth and having the coverage model to be able to be present. And the most important success element in running a channel is having that human to human connection, putting that in place. That is number one. The analytics is a further sophistication that comes afterwards, in my opinion.
Okay, great. Next question. For alliance partners, teaming fees, what do you do and how they're being used, or what do you do and how they're being used? So for alliance partners, teaming fees, so for either one for you to answer.
Do you want to have a go at that, Richard?
Look, I think you have to. I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. It really, it depends. Number one, depends on how you address teaming fees. But if you're looking at if I have a direct sales force, so one of the things that in my last job, we had a product that was not it was a technology product, but it was in the green space, and we thought it was a real disruptor, and in developing the channel, we struggled, and then we signed a $3 billion company, and we thought, hey, we have it made, and what we found is that the sales didn't just happen, and so we had to design a system that engaged the sales reps and with our direct sales force, and that was really difficult because our direct sales force wanted to do their own thing. And so that's where it becomes an interesting dynamic. You have to incent the sales rep at the partner to make sure that they're going to keep their focus on you. But you also have to incent your own sales rep to make sure that they team with that channel rep. And as Carlo said previously, you have to pay them like they sold it themselves. And in some cases, you may have to pay them more because developing a partner and selling to a client is hard work, and it takes some of that opportunity cost away from them just selling to direct customers. So you have to establish what that cost is. And in the incentive world, one of the things that I ask our people all the time is, what's going to move someone? If you give someone $5 to do something and they do it, then it's $5. But sometimes it takes $20, and sometimes it takes $100 to get them to move from what they're doing to doing what you want them to do. There's some trial and error involved, and you have to understand your direct sales force, and you have to understand the channel. And nothing's going to happen until you've done your homework in that regard. But involved in that is going to be some trial and error. You just have to be careful not to be so outside of the box that you don't get anybody's attention. And that's going to be, so when it comes to teaming, that's the challenge I would always have, is make sure you do your homework, understand what's going to move someone, and make sure that make it more rich to really make an impact. It may cost you a little bit more money, but then you're going to get results. But if you don't make it rich enough, you're not going to get people's attention.
Okay, and we just got another question come in, and just to remind everyone, because we're getting close to the top of the hour, if you do have any questions, please put in the Q&A. Here's the question. We're seeing a hybrid partner manager role where they manage resellers as well as alliance partners and manage a business unit. So Accenture being the alliance partner and retail, as an example, being the business unit. So what are your thoughts on that? And do you see that as distinct and different skills?
Yeah, I'll go very quickly. I'll give you time for you to chip in as well. I think there are different skills. I think that managing these, especially the partners that you mentioned, like Accenture, it's a huge job. I mean, that's the kind of relationship that often you'd have to have a team on. We at Gorilla, we manage partners like Accenture and Sun Young for some major vendors, and they take a lot of bandwidth. And so what we tend to see is that we get involved on the marketing side, and there's different folks who get involved on the sales side and enterprise sales by different verticals. I think that asking one person to do too much, you might actually lose on their capability to deliver on what you're asking them to do. I'd rather try to focus them a little bit more, unless of course you were looking at a line of fire that was absolutely aligned. So it's Accenture for the retail sector, and so you're actually just focusing on Accenture and only for the retail sector, and the Accenture's sales motion into the retail sector. I think that can be done, but within the partnership, like we mentioned before, you need to have relationships at management level, at rep level, at marketing, on the marketing motion, on the technical motion, and on the sales motion. These are many different things. And you just need to design, ask, first of all, the right person to do it with the right skill set. If they don't have the right skill set, the right breadth, you may want to split that into multiple roles and have a matrix kind of engagement with the reseller. Over to you, Richard.
I totally agree with you. I think that there's very different skill sets in managing alliances than there are channel sales organizations. One is very sales focused. One is, it's a different type of sale. I would actually argue that the direct sales rep is closer aligned to an alliance manager than the channel sales rep, because it's all about engaging them to help you sell your product. I would do my best to keep the roles separate. I just think that there's opportunity costs that you're going to lose in both cases. And managing an Accenture or an alliance with like a Google or with any of the big 5 consulting firms, they are a huge time suck, and they take a lot of time and relationship development. If you take Accenture, for example, to develop a real relationship, that's a 12-month to 24-month engagement. That doesn't happen overnight. Partners are similar, that they take a long time, but you can see immediate returns in the partner side. And the fact is that alliances are a commitment, and you need someone that's dedicated to making that commitment. Short-term returns aren't an area of focus for them, and that shouldn't be part of their compensation package, and you should keep them separate.
Okay, so thank you, and Richard, back to you. That's all for the questions for today.
Great. Listen, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Carlo. We appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness. Gorilla is a company that can truly help you get the most out of your channel, no matter what your channel maturity level is. If you're starting out as a company to build your channel, they can help you find partners, establish a strategy, and execute a very robust solution to help you define your channel. ChannelAssist, we're focused on engagement. We are one piece of the pie. I would argue that every single company that goes through the channel needs an incentive and engagement solution. But the fact is that the first thing you need is a strategy. And then you have to execute on that strategy. So that's one of the reasons we partnered with Gorilla. And that is because we believe we can take our clients and our prospects to Gorilla to help them formulate and develop and execute on that strategy in order to have that complete solution. And quite frankly, the channel will never be complete. You'll never say, wow, we're done. Hey, haven't we done a great job? It is a continuous execution, continuous plan that's got to be dynamic and ever changing. So you need partners and you need relationships that are going to help you do that. Gorilla and ChannelAssist, we believe, we're 2 of those companies that can help you. So again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, Carlo. Have a great day, everyone.